Hi, beautiful souls. Today you're about to dive into a story of love, heartbreak and second chances, a tale that will pull at your heartstrings and stay with you long after the last word. Thank you for being here to experience it with me. So let's begin. The Miami skyline glowed like a jeweled crown, stretching endlessly in the night, but inside the 42nd floor penthouse of the Wilson Tower, everything looked dead. Lights were off, curtains half drawn, papers scattered. A broken glass glimmered in the corner beside a toppled bottle of bourbon. And on the cold marble floor sat Nicholas Wilson, once the untouchable king of a billion-dollar tech empire, now slumped with his back against the kitchen wall, shirt open, eyes bloodshot, fingers trembling around a knife. His phone lay shattered beside him. Another betrayal. Another call confirming it. Another headline dragging his name across the world like blood in water. Minutes earlier, his board had voted to suspend him. His investors walked away. His secret data breach, an attack that wiped out billions in assets and exposed confidential information, was plastered across every news channel. His entire empire was crumbling, and for the first time in his adult life, he truly believed he had nothing left. He raised the knife to his wrist. His breath hitched, his eyes shut. Silence stretched across the penthouse like a grave. Until Mr. Nicholas? A soft voice echoed faintly from the living room. He froze, confused, because Patricia never came at night. Patricia Mark, the woman who had been more of a mother than his own, never stepped inside unless he asked her to. She had raised him from the age of 8, when his real parents traded parenting for boardrooms, and she knew when to stay away. But tonight she must have sensed something. She always did. He heard her shuffle inside, muttering to herself as she picked up his scattered laundry. Dear God. He didn't even switch on a single light. This boy. Nicholas squeezed his eyes shut. Of all nights he didn't want her here. Didn't want her to see him like this, broken, undone, shivering like a man begging for mercy. But he didn't have the strength to answer. Didn't have the courage to speak. Didn't have the will to hide the knife. Footsteps approached. But then another voice. Younger, sharper, gently scolding, Mama, I told you to stop doing this late-night work. This is not necessary. Let's go. Nicholas blinked. Sharon, Patricia's daughter. He had seen her only twice, both times in passing, quiet, respectful, always in simple jeans and sneakers, with an effortless beauty that didn't need presentation. She carried her intelligence like a second skin. Anyone could see it in the way her eyes scanned a room. She was 29 or 30, he wasn't sure. A tech graduate, he thought. Miami State. Not Ivy League. Not somewhere high profile. Not someone he expected to ever see in his penthouse. Let's finish quickly, Patricia whispered. Nico is not in a good place tonight. He lost his company, Sharon said softly. I saw the news alert. Patricia sighed, motherly, worried. This boy, as he was raised in glass towers, he doesn't know how to fall. Their voices retreated toward the guest hallway. Silence returned. Nicholas lifted the knife again. He was ready. He was so tired. But before the blade touched his wrist, the front door clicked shut. Patricia had left. Sharon had left with her. And Nicholas was alone again. He exhaled shakily, placed the point against his skin, and stop. The voice wasn't imagined. Sharon burst through the kitchen doorway like she had been running. She had come back. For what reason, he didn't know. To grab something? To check on him? Or because some instinct told her to turn around? She froze at the sight before her. Nicholas collapsed on the floor, knife against his wrist, tears streaked down his face, a half-empty bourbon bottle beside him. She inhaled sharply. Oh my God, he looked up, pupils unfocused. Give me a second, he slurred. Just go. But she dropped her bag with a thud and rushed to him. No, she whispered fiercely. I'm not leaving. He flinched as she knelt in front of him, gripping his wrist with both hands. Her touch was warm, firm, sure. Let me go, he choked. I don't want. Sharon, please. You're not dying tonight, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her breath. Not like this, not alone, and not while I'm here. He struggled weakly, but she held on. Nicholas, she said, softening her tone, look at me. He didn't want to. He didn't want her to see the humiliation in his eyes. But she touched his cheek gently, guiding his gaze upward. And when he looked into her warm brown eyes, something in him cracked. He sobbed, harsh, broken, guttural. I lost everything, he whispered. Everything I built, Everyone I trusted. They destroyed me. I'm nothing, Sharon, nothing. You're alive, she murmured. That is something. That is everything. He shook his head violently. Give me the knife. No, I can't start over. You can, I don't want to. She cupped his face, thumbs brushing away tears he didn't realize were falling. You're more than your money, she said softly. More than your company. More than the power you think defines you. He closed his eyes, trembling. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his. You don't have to be strong tonight. Just breathe, and stay with me. Her voice wrapped around him like a lifeline. Slowly, painfully, he let the knife go. She tossed it across the room and exhaled shakily in relief. Come on, she whispered, slipping an arm around his shoulders. Let's get you up. He tried to stand, swayed, and collapsed against her. She didn't flinch. She held him, really held him, like she had known him her whole life. She guided him to the bathroom, turned on the shower till it ran warm, and sat him on the edge of the tub. He stared at her in disbelief. You should leave, he muttered. This isn't your problem. She knelt, wiping the bourbon from his jaw with a washcloth. It became my problem the moment I saw you trying to hurt yourself, she said softly. I don't walk away from people who are breaking. He swallowed hard. He wasn't used to kindness, especially not now, especially not from someone who owed him nothing. After cleaning him up, she helped him drink water, guided him back to the living room, and sat with him on the floor, her back against the couch, his head resting on his knees beside her. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. The silence between them was strangely soft. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Finally, with a shaky breath, he whispered, Thank you. She gave him a small, gentle nod. Eventually, exhaustion pulled him under. He drifted asleep with his head resting near her thigh, breathing uneven but alive. Morning light poured into the living room. Sharon sat beside him still, legs crossed, laptop open on her lap. She hadn't left. Nicholas stirred, embarrassed the moment he realized where he was and who was beside him. I'm sorry, he said quietly, pushing himself up. You shouldn't have seen any of that. I'm glad I did, she replied. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. He looked away, shame tightening his throat. She closed her laptop. Before you spiral again, can I ask you something? He nodded stiffly. Your system didn't crash on its own, she said calmly. Someone sabotaged it. He scoffed. Impossible. I had the best tech experts money could buy. And yet, she said, raising a brow, one breach took down the entire empire. He frowned. She pushed the laptop toward him. Encrypted anomalies filled the screen. Lines of code highlighted. Backdoor entries exposed. Timestamps showing the exact moment the betrayal occurred. This isn't an accident, she said softly. Someone did this to you. On purpose. He stared at her, confused, a little shaken. How do you even know this? He whispered. She shrugged lightly. I studied cybersecurity. I analyze systems for fun. Your security was good, but not as good as you thought. He blinked. She held his gaze steadily. No fear, no hesitation, just quiet intelligence. And in that moment, he realized something startling. The young woman he had dismissed the night before, the woman he had nearly died in front of, the woman who saved his life, was the only person alive who could save his company too. He whispered, Sharon, what exactly did you just find? She looked back at the screen, eyes narrowing. Proof, she said. Proof that someone you trusted betrayed you. And Nicholas Wilson felt the first spark of something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Morning sunlight streamed through the penthouse windows, painting soft gold across the marble floors. Nicholas sat on the edge of the sofa, hunched forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the open laptop Sharon had placed on the glass table. The caffeine from the untouched coffee she had made for him earlier had already gone cold, but he had not moved in 10 full minutes. His eyes were locked on the code, thousands of lines, dozens of entries, each revealing something darker than the last. Sharon sat beside him, barefoot, legs folded beneath her, her presence unexpectedly calming in the chaos of his unraveling life. She pointed at the timestamp with her index finger. This right here, she said softly, is the script that started everything. His jaw tightened. This came from inside the company. Yes, she whispered, and someone who had access to your core system. Not an outsider, not a hacker, someone in your circle. He dragged a hand through his hair, fingers trembling. My circle was less than 15 people. Then it's one of the 15, Sharon replied, voice steady but gentle. Someone close. He exhaled sharply, the sound breaking halfway. Betrayal already hurt, but betrayal from someone within his inner world. That was a different kind of knife. Sharon watched him quietly. She did not push. She did not tell him to be strong. She just stayed. Last night, he said slowly, I thought I had nothing left. She turned to him. You were in pain. That's an excuse, he muttered. No, she corrected, voice soft but firm. That's human. He looked at her, surprised by her gentleness. The stubborn part of him wanted to argue, but the truth was he did not have the energy to pretend he was fine. How long did you stay here? He asked. All night. He blinked. Why? She held his gaze, no hesitation, no embarrassment. Because you needed someone to stay. The words hit him harder than anything he had heard in months. They spent the next hour digging deeper. Sharon typed quickly, moving through lines of encrypted code like someone who had lived inside computer systems since birth. Nicholas found himself watching her more than the screen, her concentration, the way her eyebrow arched slightly when something did not make sense, the faint crease in her forehead as she scanned deeper. How did you learn all this? He asked. Sharon shrugged. I didn't have expensive tutors or a famous last name. Just tech group, midnight coffee, and a whole lot of determination. He stared at her. He, born into privilege, had spent millions building a team he believed unmatched. Yet the woman who cracked the impossible sat beside him in a simple black t-shirt, unbothered by the chaos he was drowning in, hair pulled into a loose bun, skin glowing softly in the morning light. Nicholas swallowed. You're extraordinary. She paused, fingers hovering above the keyboard. I'm just good at what I love. No, he said quietly, you're extraordinary. Her cheeks warmed, and she looked back at the screen to escape the intensity of his gaze. Hours passed. Together they uncovered the pattern, a backdoor planted months earlier, used strategically over time to destabilize the entire system. It's someone with long-term access, Sharon murmured. Someone who knows the architecture of your codebase. Someone patient. Someone I trusted, Nicholas said, the bitter taste rising in his throat. Sharon studied him carefully. Do you have a name in mind? He did not answer, not immediately, but his silence told her enough. As evening approached, Nicholas walked to the balcony for air. Miami's warm breeze brushed over his skin, fragrant with salt water and humidity. His empire, the Wilson Tower, stood tall but silently wounded behind him. Sharon joined him quietly, stepping outside on bare feet again, leaning against the railing just a few inches from him. You don't look okay, she said softly. I'm not. You don't have to pretend with me. He turned to her, genuinely confused. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Helping me, staying, caring. His voice cracked. You didn't have to. She looked at him. Not as the billionaire, not as the CEO, not as the man whose name commanded rooms and deals, but as a person. My mother raised me to help people who are hurting, she said quietly. You are hurting more than anyone I've ever seen. His throat tightened. And she added, her voice lowering, everyone deserves at least one person who doesn't walk away when things fall apart. Nicola closed his eyes briefly. Those words hit a place in him he had buried for decades. My parents never stayed, he murmured. Not once. They didn't even come when I launched my first company. Sharon turned fully toward him, face softening. You grew up alone. Except for Patricia, he admitted. She was everything. She still is, Sharon said with a small smile. He glanced at her, a faint ache forming in his chest. You and your mother, you're the only people who've shown me kindness in years. Sharon's expression softened further. I'm not showing you kindness, she said quietly. He frowned. Then what are you doing? I'm showing you humanity, she whispered. Something you forgot you deserved. The words knocked the breath out of him. No employee had ever spoken to him like that. No partner. No friend, because he did not have many. But Sharon was not afraid of him. She was not intimidated by his status or his fall. She saw him, messy, ruined, bleeding on the inside, and still chose to stay. He swallowed hard. You don't know what this means to me. She looked out at the skyline, voice soft. I don't need to. It's enough that you're trying. He wasn't sure he was. But the way she said the word made him feel like maybe he could. Later that night, they sat at opposite ends of the sofa, laptops open, screens glowing in the dim room. "You need to sleep," Sharon murmured. "Can't. What if I stay working with you until your mind slows down?" He smiled weakly. "You don't have to babysit me." She lifted an eyebrow. "I didn't say babysit. I said stay." For a man who had been abandoned only hours before, those words were enough to keep him breathing. He nodded. Sharon scooted closer, placing her laptop beside his. "Here," she said gently, "breathe with me." He blinked. "What? Just do it." "You're stressed." She inhaled deeply. In, out, slowly. It was absurd. He was a grown man, a CEO, a man who commanded thousands. But the moment she inhaled again, he found himself following, slow, deep, steady. Something inside him loosened. "You're good at calming people," he whispered. "You needed grounding," she replied. "I saw it earlier." "What did you see?" "You shaking," she said. "And pretending you weren't." He closed his laptop. "You read me too easily." "That's because you've been carrying too much for too long," she murmured. He looked at her, really looked, and something inside him shifted. A connection, a pull, a quiet gravity drawing him toward her. He didn't understand it. But he felt it. "Sharon," he whispered, unsure what he wanted to say next. "Yes, you're different." She smiled faintly. "And you're not as cold as you pretend." He laughed softly, a sound he had not made in months. She closed her laptop as well. "Nicholas," she said gently, "I know today has been brutal. I know the betrayal cuts deep. But you're not alone in this. Not anymore." His breath caught. No one had ever said those words to him. Never. Not once. He swallowed hard. "Why does it matter to you?" She held his gaze without flinching. "Because no one deserves to drown," she whispered. "And if I can help you swim, even for a moment, then that's enough." The air shifted. He felt it in his chest, in the ache behind his ribs, in the quiet gratitude tightening his throat. He whispered, "Thank you." She touched his hand lightly, just one soft touch, and something electric passed between them. "You're welcome," she said softly. They sat like that, close, quiet, breathing in the same slow rhythm, until exhaustion finally pulled him under. Her presence beside him was the last thing he felt before sleep claimed him. And for the first time since his world collapsed, Nicholas Wilson didn't feel completely alone. The Miami heat clung to the windows of Nicholas's glass tower, but inside his office it was a different kind of warmth. Sharon sat across from him, glowing under the soft light of the desk lamp, tapping on her laptop with effortless precision. 3 months had passed since the night she saved him. 3 months of quiet companionship, slow healing, and late-night coding sessions that stretched into sunrise. 3 months of watching Sharon bring his system back to life, brick by digital brick, until his company not only recovered, but rose stronger, smarter, cleaner than ever before. 3 months of falling for her, and now, watching her sitting there, hair tied up, lips pursed in concentration, Nicholas realized something terrifying. He loved her. Not in the casual passing way he had loved women before. Not in the shallow way his wealth had attracted attention. Not in the way that faded after a few weeks. No, this was deeper. This was slow and violent and consuming. Like something had reached inside his chest and rewritten who he was. He stared at her a moment too long. Sharon glanced up. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" he asked, pretending to focus on his own screen. "Staring like you're analyzing an error code." He smiled softly. "Maybe I am." She raised a brow. "And what did your analysis reveal?" "That I owe you more than I can ever repay," he murmured. Her expression softened, but she quickly looked away. "Don't make it dramatic," she said lightly. "You did all the heavy lifting. You rebuilt my company," he said, voice low. "You rebuilt yourself," she countered. He swallowed hard. Later that night, after Patricia brought dinner and left them with enough food to feed an entire boardroom, Nicholas watched Sharon pack her laptop into her bag. "Are you leaving early?" he asked. "It's 10:45 p.m., Nicholas." "Right," he said, cheeks warming. "I forgot what normal hours look like." She slung her bag over her shoulder. "You'll be okay?" He nodded, but something in him tightened. He didn't want her to leave. Not tonight. Not when everything inside him felt too full, too tangled, too loud. He stood abruptly. "Sharon." She paused at the door and turned. The way she looked at him, patient, warm, unafraid, made his next words shake. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. She stepped closer, concern in her eyes. What's wrong? His throat felt tight. Too tight. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals, confronted investors, survived being dragged through international headlines. But confessing to Sharon Mark, he felt 18 again, nervous, clumsy, bare, human. I'm in love with you, he said quietly. Silence slammed into the room like a gust of wind. Sharon blinked, once, twice. Nicholas, she whispered, almost pained. Don't, it's not sudden, he said quickly. It's been months. I fought it. I tried to hide it. I tried to pretend you were just my savior, my teammate, my partner. But you're more than all of that. She looked away, pulse flickering in her neck. He stepped closer, voice soft but trembling. You showed me what kindness feels like, what honesty feels like, what life feels like outside of power and money. When I'm with you, I'm not the ruined billionaire. I'm just me. Her eyes glassed over, but she shook her head. Nicola, I can't be that for you. He froze. Why? She whispered. Because, she said, voice shaking, you're rebuilding your life. You're healing. You're vulnerable. You're still hurting. And I won't let myself be the woman you latch onto, because I happened to be standing there when everything fell apart. His heart cracked. I'm not latching onto you, he said, trying to stay steady. I love who you are. Not just what you did, Nicholas. She exhaled shakily. You don't understand. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company again. And I'm your Sharon, he said firmly, stepping closer. The most brilliant woman I've ever met. Her lashes fluttered, but she still shook her head. I can't risk it, she whispered. I can't risk losing myself in someone who's still figuring out who he is. He swallowed. The rejection landed softly but painfully. Okay, he murmured, voice barely audible. I hear you. Her eyes softened with guilt. But I need you to know, she added, that I care about you deeply. I just can't cross that line. He nodded slowly, forcing a breath past the ache in his chest. Good night, Nicholas, she whispered. He watched her walk to the elevator. Watched the doors close. Watched everything inside him shatter with quiet dignity. But Nicholas Wilson had never been a man who gave up easily. And when it came to Sharon, giving up wasn't an option. The next day, he showed up at her apartment building at 7 a.m. She stepped out of her door, startled. Nicholas, what are you? He handed her a cup of coffee. Double caramel latte, he said softly. 2 pumps. Extra foam, no sugar. Like you like it. Her lips parted. You don't have to do this, she said. I want to, he answered. He did it again the next day, and the next, and the next. But he never pressured her, never begged, never crossed a boundary. He just showed up, quiet, gentle, consistent. At work, he left handwritten notes on her desk. Thank you again for everything. Hope today feels light. You make the world better just by existing. Sometimes she rolled her eyes. Sometimes she smiled without meaning to. But every note softened something in her. One afternoon he appeared at her favorite coding cafe, silently sitting across the room, working with headphones on. He didn't interrupt. He didn't hover. He just wanted to be near her. Sharon found her heart betraying her, in moments she didn't expect, watching him laugh with the cafe barista, watching him push his hair back when he concentrated, watching him carry responsibility with a new, humble softness she had never seen in a billionaire before. She tried to fight it. She tried to stay guarded. But Nicholas Wilson was persistent in the most gentle, respectful way possible. He didn't chase, he stayed. And that was far more dangerous. 2 weeks later, on a crowded Saturday afternoon, Sharon crossed a busy Miami plaza on her way to buy groceries. People were everywhere, kids running around fountains, couples taking photos, music blasting from a street performer. She blended into the crowd effortlessly. Until the music stopped. Until murmurs started rising. Until every head turned toward the center of the plaza. Sharon's heart skipped. Because standing on top of the fountain ledge, hair wine-tossed, shirt slightly wrinkled, face flushed with nervous courage, was Nicholas, holding a microphone from God knows where. Oh no, oh no. Her stomach dropped. Nicola, what are you doing? She whispered under her breath. People gathered, phones came out, and Nicholas, who had once been the coldest, most controlled man in Miami, lifted the microphone to his lips. Hi, he said, voice echoing across the plaza. "I'm Nicholas Wilson." A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. He continued, voice steady despite the tremor she knew was there. "I'm here today because there's a woman I love." Sharon froze. "I tried to tell her privately," he said, "but she's stubborn and gentle and too smart for her own good, so I'm trying again, publicly, loudly." A few people laughed fondly. Sharon covered her face with her hands. "Lord help me, but I'll say this clearly," Nicholas said, eyes scanning the crowd. "Her name is Sharon Mark, and I love her. I love her strength. I love her fire. I love how she saved my life without ever asking for anything in return. I love who I am when she's near. I love everything." The plaza erupted with gasps and applause. Sharon's eyes stung. Her pulse raced. Her knees weakened. People started chanting, "Where is Sharon?" She stepped forward slowly, trembling. When Nicholas saw her, his breath stopped. He jumped down from the ledge and walked toward her like she was the only person in Miami. "Sharon," he said softly, gently offering the microphone to a bystander. "I know you said no. I know you're scared. I know I hurt. I know I'm imperfect. But I'm not going anywhere. Not today. Not tomorrow, not ever." She felt her defenses crumble with every word. He reached her, breathing fast. "If all you want from me is friendship, I'll take it. If you want distance, I'll respect it. But I need you to know every word I said was real." Tears slipped down her cheeks. For the first time, she didn't fight them. "Nicola," she whispered. "Yes, come here." He blinked. "What?" She grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him down into a kiss. Heat, relief, shock. 1,000 emotions collided as the plaza erupted around them. Nicholas froze, then melted, kissing her back like she was air life salvation. When she finally pulled away, she whispered against his lips, "I never stopped wanting you. I was just scared." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "I was scared too." She let out a shaky breath. "But you didn't run." He smiled, forehead against hers. "I stayed." "And I'm done pushing you away," she whispered. Nicholas exhaled shakily, pulling her into his chest as cheers rose around them. For the first time since his empire fell, since his life collapsed, since he thought he had nothing left, he felt whole. He felt chosen. He felt love. Miami was painted in gold that morning, that soft sunrise gold that looked like hope, spreading slowly across the sky. Nicholas stood in front of the balcony window, tie in hand, heart pounding like he'd never commanded billion-dollar deals in his life. Today wasn't a negotiation. Today wasn't an empire. Today was Sharon. Today was the woman who had rebuilt him from dust, the woman who allowed him to find a version of himself he didn't even know existed. He adjusted the tie again, then dragged a palm down his face. "I rebuilt a corporation from ashes," he muttered. "Why can't I tie this thing right?" Patricia laughed softly behind him, warm, motherly, familiar. "Because love makes your hands tremble, Nicholas. And that's not a weakness." He turned, exhaled. "You've been with me since I was 8. And now here you are, getting me ready for my wedding." Patricia straightened the tie gently, eyes misty. "You deserve to be loved, mi niño. You always did. You just needed someone who saw your heart before your money." He swallowed the lump in his throat. "She saved my life, Patricia." "She saved more than that," she whispered. "She saved the boy I used to tuck into bed. She brought him back." He had no words, only gratitude. By the time they reached the beachfront garden, a private cove Nicholas had bought and redesigned just for her, guests were already seated. White chiffon fluttered in the breeze. The aisle lined with soft roses and delicate lights, shaped like fireflies. Miami's turquoise waves provided the soundtrack. But none of it mattered, because when Sharon stepped out from behind the bridal arch, everything else blurred. She wore a simple ivory gown, elegant and soft, her curls pulled back but free enough to dance in the breeze. Her skin glowed under the morning sun, caramel warmth glowing like she carried her own light. When Nicholas saw her, his breath vanished. She wasn't just beautiful. She was the reason he was alive to see beauty at all. Sharon held her bouquet gently, failing to hide her trembling fingers. She knew everyone's eyes were on her, but her eyes were only on Nicholas, the man who had once sat on his kitchen floor wanting to die, the man she refused to let go. The man who spent months proving that his heart wasn't a performance, but a promise. He looked at her like she was the miracle that rewrote his destiny. When Patricia linked her arm with Sharon's, and began to walk her down the aisle. Nicholas wiped a tear he didn't bother hiding. Sharon saw it, and she smiled, the soft, emotional smile she gave only to him. When she reached him, he whispered so quietly she barely heard it. "Thank you for choosing to live with me." Her eyes warmed. "Thank you for choosing to live." The officiant began the ceremony, but they hardly heard the words. Their hearts were speaking too loudly. "You may say your vows now." Nicholas inhaled deeply, hands shaking around hers. "Sharon Mark, before you walked into my penthouse that night, I thought everything good in me had died. I thought my worth was tied to what I built. I thought losing everything meant losing myself. And then you saved me. Not just my company, not just my sanity. You saved the part of me that I'd buried under ambition and armor." She blinked back tears, lip trembling. "You believed in me when I was unlovable. You held me when I was unbearable. You held my hand when I didn't want to breathe anymore. You stood by me when the world mocked me. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. Sharon, everything I am today, I am because you stayed." Her tears broke free. He continued, voice thick with emotion. "You showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness. Love isn't dependence, and trust isn't a gamble. I vow to love you with the same devotion you gave me without hesitation. I vow to stand by you, protect you, cherish you, and lift you the way you lifted me. You are my miracle. You are my beginning, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that the man you saved was worth saving." Sharon pressed his hands to her lips, eyes swimming. "My turn," she whispered. The wind stilled. The ocean softened. It felt like even nature leaned in to listen. "Nicholas, when I walked into your penthouse that night, I didn't save you. I simply refused to let a good man die believing he wasn't worthy of life. You were broken, yes, but even in your darkest moment, your heart was still fighting. I just held the pieces long enough for you to see that." She took a shaky breath. "You fell, but you allowed me to help you rise. And in that journey you showed me gentleness I never expected. Patience that melted my walls. Devotion that scared me, healed me, and made me believe in love again. I turned you down because I was afraid of heartbreak, afraid of being too much or not enough. But you kept choosing me openly, loudly, fearlessly." She smiled through her tears. "You taught me that love isn't supposed to be quiet. It's supposed to be honest, persistent, and warm. So I vow to choose you, every day, every storm, every victory. I vow to fight beside you, stand behind you, love you fiercely, challenge you when you lose yourself, and remind you always that you are enough. You've always been enough." A few sniffles echoed among the guests. Even Nicholas looked like he was 1 second from falling apart in her arms. The officiant smiled tenderly. "Rings?" Patricia handed them over herself, hands trembling with joy. Nicholas placed the ring on her finger, whispering, "My forever." Sharon slid his ring on with hands that shook. "My home." The sun broke through the clouds, warm and bright. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Nicholas didn't wait. He cupped her face and kissed her. A deep, emotional kiss. The kind that came from months of love, fear, gratitude, and devotion. Sharon melted into him, fingers gripping the back of his neck, tears mixing with the kiss. When they broke apart, the world roared with applause, but Nico only whispered against her forehead, "I'll love you every lifetime." And she whispered, "I'll cherish you too." Their reception was intimate. Soft music, dim lights, heartfelt laughter, and a joy that felt like breathing after years underwater. Sharon danced barefoot on the sand with him, her head on his chest. "Can you believe this?" she whispered. He wrapped his arms around her. "I can, because I've dreamed of this since you took that knife from my hand." She looked up at him, emotional. "Don't bring that day up today." "I have to," he whispered, "because that was the day God returned my heart to me." Her eyes softened. "Then today is the day he gave you mine." He kissed her again, soft, long, certain. A year later, their house was filled with tiny cries and soft laughter. Their twin babies, a boy and a girl, slept in their nursery, decorated in soft creams and sky blues. Sharon swayed gently with their daughter in her arms, while Nicholas rocked their son in his. "Can you believe we made them?" she whispered. Nicholas kissed their daughter's tiny head. "I can believe anything as long as it's with you." Sharon smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. This wasn't the man she met in a dark penthouse. This was the man she married, healed, loving, vulnerable, whole. "You still owe me something," she murmured. He raised a brow. What? That loud confession you made at the square? Our kids need to see it one day. He laughed softly. I'll shout your name across Miami every year if you want. She grinned. Good, because you're mine, Nicholas Wilson. He pressed his forehead to hers, always, and in the golden quiet of their nursery, with their twins breathing softly against their chests, they knew one thing for certain. Their love hadn't just saved a life. It built a new one. A forever one. And that brings us to the end of this story. I hope it touched your heart, stirred your emotions, and reminded you of the power of love and second chances. Remember, when one love story ends, another is waiting to begin. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next heartfelt tale. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so share them in the comments below. Until next time, keep your hearts open and your souls inspired. This is Vintage Mike Tales.